have the queries, the customer query. For example, if you want to get a list of customers, a list of orders, or a list of your product, that will be there in the queries. The handlers will contain the query and the command handling, and that will be present for each of these entities as well. Our application has started. We have the web API project and the UI project running, and we will be able to see these the products being present here. Hello everyone, welcome back to the 5-Minute Tech channel. Today we will be talking about clean architecture based application development, in which we will be developing a full stack application based on clean architecture. For this we'll be making a shopping cart application based on ASP.NET Core, Entity Framework Core, MediatR, AutoMapper, and using a Blazor WebAssembly for the UI. So let's get started. What is clean architecture? It's a design paradigm that structures software system into distinct concrete layers, each with its well-defined responsibility. And it originated from Robert Martin's idea, wherein the clean architecture emphasizes separation of concern and independence from external technologies. This approach is geared towards creating systems that are easier to maintain, test, and evolve over the time through the different layers that it works with, especially the command, query, and the validators which are in place, which helps it to make the code very loosely coupled. The different layers in this this structure or this architecture paradigm is the domain layer, the application layer, presentation layer, infrastructure layer. The domain layer is the innermost layer. So this is also referred to as the onion architecture, where you can peel different layers. So the middle layer is the domain, the application layer is the outer of the domain, and then there are presentation layer, infrastructure, which also has the persistence layer at the outermost layer. Now if you see, the control flows inwards. There is a inversion of dependency inversion, as we call it, and the dependency is on the domain model, wherein we create those domain or entities on which everything else depends upon, and is directly calling the domain, and on that basis everything is orchestrated. The domain layer has the core business logic and the rules, and the business objects like customer, order, domain rules are present in it. The application layer, which is something which is on top of the domain layer, contains the application specific workflows and orchestration. Example, your interactors, service classes that implement the use cases. The presentation layer is mostly like a converting data between the internal and external forms, the controllers in the APIs, or your MVC razor pages, presenters, gateways, the repository interfaces, and all those are present in this layer. The infrastructure layer is the external system and has the technical details. Now the key principles underpinning the clean architecture are dependency rule, wherein we talked about the dependency inversion, wherein the source code dependency always points inwards. That means nothing in an inner layer should be knowing anything about or depend on the outer layer. The rule is fundamental to keep the business rules isolated and resilient against changes. Then this is a separation of concern. Each layer in clean architecture has a distinct responsibility, and this creates modularity, making it easier to modify one part of the system without affecting others. Now it's clear that if you keep it distinct and maintainable, you are having a feature of making it easily testable. Since business logic is decoupled from external concerns, each component can be tested independently, and you can write tests for the use cases and entities without worrying about the database or user interface. Then the last one is the flexibility and maintainability. Changing the UI framework or migrating database or altering external services can be done without rewriting the core logic, and the clean architecture provides a robust boundary where each change is localized and manageable. So this is the implementation which we will be working upon. We will have the three important areas of implementation, which is products, customer, and orders, which will be having its own UI in terms of Blazor, and also the API Swagger we will be configuring for each of these services, or you can say controllers or the razor pages. Then it will interact directly with the application layer, which will have the command and query handlings and the DTOs which we'll be talking about, this is the most heavy layer which will have lot of code in it. It will have for all the three layers the command and query handlings, the DTOs, the validators, and the AutoMapper and everything. Along with that, there is an infrastructure layer which will have the data access and the persistence, wherein we'll build the entity framework core and the connection to SQL server, and then the domain layer which will have the basic entities and any business rules which we want to configure, like a validation and all those things can be put in here. So let's get started with the code area. We'll now jump into the code and design this application. So we are in the Visual Studio, and to begin with we'll have the empty solution. So we'll add a blank solution to begin with. We'll name it as clean architecture. Now we will add the class libraries for different projects. For example, infrastructure, application, domain, and then we will add web UI and API projects. So first let's start with the domain. So I've gone ahead and added these projects. First is the ASP.NET Core Web API. Then we have the class library for application, a class library for domain, and a class library for infrastructure. And also we have a Blazor Web UI app. We go ahead and add the entities for the domain project now. So I've added the four entities: customer, order item, and the product entity in the domain project. Now I'll go ahead and add the wiring up in the application layer. So in the application layer we have created 4 different folders, each for an entity, and each entity has command, DTOs, handlers, and queries. The command DTO for this is the command, DTO, handlers, and queries are for each of the entities. So we have a AutoMapper mapping profile. Now these commands are basically the ones which are related to create, or if we have something like other command which we want to pass from the UI or the API project, that is what it is created here. We will have the DTOs for each of these, especially for the orders we will have more DTOs, wherein we are creating order item DTO or order DTOs and all those things. And then we will have the queries, the customer query. For example, if you want to get a list of customers, a list of orders, or a list of your product, that will be there in the queries. The handlers will contain the query and the command handling, and that will be present for each of these entities as well. We have also gone ahead and add the dependencies which are for AutoMapper, Fluent Validation, MediatR, Entity Framework Core for each of these layers, because we would need them to execute the queries which comes in. So we will go ahead and wire up the reference for the infrastructure persistence layer now. Before that, let's see what we have in persistence and the migration layer. So we have application DB context. So we have the application DB context, in which we have defined the product, customers, orders, DB sets, and also we have done the basic wiring or the table creation in the application DB context on model creating method. Also we have application DB context factory, wherein we are supplying the connection string for creating the DB context. Also we have specific migrations in place for creating the database and setting up the database columns and everything. And we have added the reference of the clean architecture infrastructure persistence in our application layer, and that's how the handlers are now able to connect to application DB context. So these are the two layers: application layer with all the DTOs, commands, handlers, queries, and the infrastructure layer with the persistence layer, wherein we calling the DB context and everything around that. We'll move on to the API project now, wherein we'll wire up this structure into the API project. So we have added three controllers: the customer controller with the get customer and create, similarly for orders, and also with the product. Now these are all talking with the commands which we have written in the application layer. So get product query and the create and the command for the create product which we have. So both get and product queries are being sent through MediatR. So there is a very loose coupling here, wherein through MediatR we are sending the queries to the application layer, and this is applied to all the different kinds of entities which we have, and they are in turn translated into order DTO through the mapper layer. So this is the whole the controller layers, and then we have a wiring up, wherein what we have done is we have added the wiring for the MediatR for the registered assemblies for the different application layer entities. So that is the commands, and also we have the connection string for the DB context. We have the default connection here in app setting, which is talking to our which is pointing to our SQL database, and then we have other things wherein we have added the AutoMapper for the profiles, which was there for converting the DTOs to the entities. So if you see here, these are the DTOs and to entity conversion that we do. And then also we have added the fluent validation, which is deprecated, but we'll be using it for now. And we are registration the validators which we have written for different for the product actually, which all things are required and all those things. So this is how we wire up the application layer in our web API. And also we have written a specific middleware which is used for logging any exception that happens. So this is the implementation from the layer which is the web API layer. Now we will go on to the web UI. So this is the web UI project, which has to begin with a program CS which is pointing to the API endpoint, and what it is basically doing is creating those HTTP client factory for creating the client and connecting to the endpoints for the products, customer, and the order. We have the imports razor, which imports all the dependencies along with the pages and the shared files. The shared file, the main layout, has a simple sidebar along with the nav bar which points to different entities. Then we have the host CSHTML, which basically does the rendering part, and your app razor, which points to the main layout and the route data. The three code or three areas where we have implemented is the customer, wherein what we are doing is we are pointing to the customer object here, the customer DTO. We need to add the reference, project reference for that, so let me do that. And when we have the customer DTO coming in for the API response, which is API customer, it is filling up the loading the customer, and also what we have option to is to create the customers from the UI. Similarly for orders, and also similarly for products, we are listing the list of products and the orders, and also giving an option to create the entity. Now let's go ahead and run this application and see how it works. For running the application, we'll set up two startup project. So configure startup project, and we will say multiple startup project, and in this what we will do is we'll do a web API start and the web UI start. We'll click OK and we'll click on start. Our application has started. We have the web API project and the UI project running. We have an option to first check application is working fine through the API, so let's do that first. So first we'll go ahead and create a customer. The name probably is a test user. And and when we click on execute, we should be able to publish and get the data. Now in UI we can go ahead, and in application we'll see if things are loading fine. So we will go ahead and check this one. So in the products, we have in the customers we have created a test user, and that's what is loading back here. So that's how the application is working fine. We'll go ahead and create a new product, like a test product, and in the test product we can just use the same thing, price 100 stock 1, and create product. And if you see here, this is getting listed immediately. And if we go to the SQL server, and we will be able to see these the products being present here. So that's about the implementation of the clean architecture, wherein we have these layers and the way it works together, and it's a very loosely coupled system. Hope you like the video. If you like the video, press like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.